What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crowdeye Lake, and today we'll be reading the final couple chapters of The Trash Man and the Snake Boi, chapters 13 to the end. If you'd like to read along or just check out the book, the links to the book and the author will be in the description below. Now, this is the final video, so if you are not caught up on the book, I'd go back and watch the other two episodes where I read the first 6 and the middle 6 chapters. Chapter 13. What He Said. It was quiet in the mindscape. Logan's and Roman's wounds were already healing as they should. Luckily, they weren't actual humans, or else they might be a lot more difficult. After Virgil got both of them painkillers, the two sides could at least walk normally, even though it will need more time until they completely recover. It at least was a start. Thomas in the real world, not allowed to leave his home until the situation was clear, the man decided to stick with cartoons to distract himself from everything that was going on. Remus's head was lying in Deceit's lap. Roman, Logan, and Virgil tried to talk to him. Now that they all knew the two dark sides were simply protecting Thomas from depression, they all regretted their actions against the two. They, of course, were all worried about Patton, but if Deceit let it, must mean that the situation was under control. That's how the logical side calmed his friends down. Logan and Virgil were whispering with each other while Roman stared at his brother. What did he tell you? Roman asked quietly. Deceit looked up at him for a second before his eyes instantly fell back down on Remus's face. Deceit carefully brushed the hair out of the man's face, letting his hand rest on his cheek after the snake finished. Deceit closed his eyes as to not let Roman see his vulnerability, even though it's already way too late for this. He pulled Remus a little closer and started his relaxed features. Deceit wanted to wait until the man woke up, but he knew deep down, as much as he denied it, this might never happen, so he knew he had to respond to the last thing Remus told him before falling unconscious. Deceit placed a light kiss on Remus's forehead and looked at his closed eyes with a saddened expression. Then he answered to Remus's last words, "I love you too." Silence followed the statement, and finally Deceit let a few tears slip. Roman, Virgil, and Logan stared at the two. A hand placed itself on Deceit's cheek carefully. "Glad you do." Chapter 14. Explanation. Remus. Deceit's voice broke a little as his words turned into a soft sobs of joy. Remus sat up, despite Logan and Deceit telling him to lay back down. The man groaned a little and rubbed his arm, just to release the bandages. He didn't bother inspecting it any further and looked at Deceit. "Missed me already?" He grinned. It was still weakened, but it was Remus's usual grin nonetheless, and Deceit loved it. Without spending a second thought on it, Deceit leaned in and kissed the man that stole his heart one day, just to keep it protected in a wooden box, buried on an aisle. Remus was surprised for a second, before kissing back, a smile creeping onto his face. When they disconnected their lips, Deceit smiled at him. "You should still get some rest." Remus groaned and pouted, but leaned on to Deceit's shoulder anyways. Not satisfied with the position, he pushed Deceit down with his healthy arm and laid into the man's chest, where his eyes soon shut and soft snores became audible. Deceit sighed and laid an arm around Remus's waist. This took way too long to figure out. Roman was staring at the scene in front of him. There were just so many emotions flowing through him at the moment. He was glad his brother was alive, hurt that Deceit was more important to Remus than he was, slightly jealous that Remus got a boyfriend before he did, and angry at depression for nearly killing his brother. Meanwhile, Logan and Virgil were just relieved that nobody had died. "Hey guys!" Everyone awake turned to look at Patton, relieved that the fatherly side was okay, but immediately tensed when they saw depression next to him. "Patton, what is the meaning of this?" Logan asked carefully, inspecting every inch of Depression's appearance. The man, now back in his cloak, looked at the ground, then over to where Remus and Deceit were laying. "Is he okay?" Depression asked quietly. Deceit stared at him with hatred burning in his eyes. So were Roman and Virgil. Logan's eyes were filled with suspicion and distrust. "Why would you care?" Virgil hissed. Roman had to agree. "You're the one that nearly killed him in the first place." Depression quickly looked back at the ground. "Now, boys, Depression is really sorry about what he did," Penance said, putting a hand on Depression's shoulder. "Explain yourself, then," Deceit said. You see," Depression interrupted himself with a sigh. "So it's basically the same, like anxiety." "Don't you dare pull Virgil into this," Roman interrupted, still more than mad. "Just let me finish, please." After nothing came as response, Depression continued. "Like I tried to say, anxiety has anxiety, and he could give Thomas all of it, but he doesn't, which makes his anxiety double as bad. It's the same with me, just I'm not as strong as he is. I can't hold so much depression, it hurts." Patton and Virgil's faces softened. Deceit and Roman were still mad, and Logan preferred being careful. "That would explain why you would try to give Thomas depression, but it doesn't explain why you manipulated Remus and I, or forced us to tyrannize Thomas," Deceit said, staring at him from the position under Remus. "It might not seem as intimidating as you wanted to." Depression sighed. "It's when you tyrannized Thomas, I couldn't let some depression slip without anyone noticing me, and when I manipulated you into hurting Remus, I could transfer some depression over to him, even though the thing with Roman helped a little." Roman gasped, now even angrier and more confused than before. "Me? Well, you see, the thing back when you—" "Enough," Deceit interrupted Depression. "It is Remus's decision to let others know, and Remus's only." Depression nodded in understanding. Before Roman could say anything, Logan stepped in. "Why did you try to kill us?" I didn't want to kill you. I just didn't want you helping Thomas, so I could, you know." Depression was shifting nervously. Finally, Virgil said something. "Do you want to know how I can stand keeping the worst parts of anxiety away from Thomas most of the time?" Depression instantly nodded. "Because I talked. It took a while, but in the end, I talked about my anxiety and the others helped me. Back then, it was Remus and Deceit. I mean, it didn't always work, but they tried. And now I have the others helping me. Of course I'm still afraid. Of course I still have anxiety. Of course sometimes I can't contain it all. But talking helps so much. And if you talk to us, even if it's just one person you trust enough, it helps. Because there are people that care about you. And if you talk, I can't say that it all will go away immediately, because it won't. But with time, it will get better. That I can promise you. Time may not heal every single wound, and time will most likely leave scars, but you won't bleed out anymore. We're here to help." Depression was leaking tears while staring at Virgil. A quiet sob escaped his lips. Thank you." Pan smiled wryly. "How about we all go to sleep now? It was a pretty long day." They all looked at each other and sighed. "Yeah. Okay, but Depression?" Side looked at Roman. "Tomorrow you will apologize to my brother." "Yeah, of course." Everyone went to their rooms. Deceit stood with Remus on the couch, and Patton pulled Depression over to his room. Chapter 15. Good morning. Remus was the first to wake up. He snuggled closer to the warmth underneath him until he realized what it was, or more like who it was. Remus opened his eyes and looked into a beautiful yellow one and a brown one that looked exactly like his own, but yet held so much more depth and beauty than Remus could ever imagine. Good morning, Deceit said in a raspy morning voice, which let Remus grin. Deceit smiled at the man in his arms while he slowly sat up. Remus now sat on top of Deceit, grinning down to his lover. Called Snake smeared a little and sat up himself, holding Remus close so that he won't fall off. The Duke wrapped his leg around Deceit's waist and laid his head on the other man's shoulder. Deceit carefully unwrapped the bandage around Remus's arm, satisfied to see that the cut had nearly fully healed. They could be really lucky that they're just sides and not real humans. Just as Deceit laid the bandage aside, Patton came into view. "Hey guys, is everyone all right?" the damaged side asked. "Yes, we're fine, thank you." Remus didn't really give the man any attention, but simply stayed in a hug-like position with Deceit. "I'm gonna make breakfast," Patton announced before heading off to the kitchen. Shortly after he left, Logan came down. "Salutations, I see Remus is feeling better now. That's good," he said before walking off to the kitchen. Shortly before exiting the room, he stopped. "Thank you for helping Thomas." Before any of them could answer, Logan left. Deceit and Remus parted soon, and now simply sat next to each other. The next one to enter was Roman. He looked at the couch, and seeing his brother awake, instantly went over to the two sides. "Remus, you're okay!" Roman exclaimed happily. His twin simply stared at the prince. Roman shifted a little uncomfortable. Before he sighed, "Harry." It's been ages since Roman called him that. Last time they were little kids, before the two brothers had the big fight that left Remus with some trust issues. So, of course, Remus looked up in confusion. "What, did I have to die for you to call me that again?" Remus asked, laughing a little, only Deceit could see the true emotions in his body language. "I wanted to ask you something," Roman said. "Shoot it. Or me." "Mood," Virgil said, who just came down the stairs. The boy quickly rushed into the kitchen as to not disturb the three any further. Roman sighed and took a deep breath. "When you fell asleep, depression appeared. He said that I helped him transfer some depression onto you, and when he wanted to explain, Deceit said that it's up to you to tell me, and I wanted to know what I did wrong." Remus just stared at his twin. "What did you do wrong?" "What you did wrong? Oh, I'm going to tell you what you did wrong," the Duke basically yelled before taking a deep breath to calm his nerves. Chapter 15, The Past, Part 1. "You can't catch me," Roman yelled while running away from his twin. Remus laughed at that, increasing his speed, only to trip over a little rock. Roman instantly came to a halt and turned around to look at his twin. "Remus, are you okay?" he asked, running back to his brother. Remus jumped back to his feet, bleeding from the mouth. On further inspection, the maybe 8-year-old boy lost a tooth. He quickly slapped his brother. "You're it," he laughed and ran away. "Remus, that's not funny," Roman yelled, angered, but quickly laughed about it, running after his brother. "Hello, are you guys there?" a small voice lisped. Remus instantly stopped running and grinned widely. "D!" the boy yelled, jumping at the newcomer. Roman giggled as the two fell over, since D hadn't exactly expected to be tackled as a greeting. "Did you lose a tooth?" he asked, confused as Remus' blood fell down onto Deceit's hand. "Yeah," the boy said, grinning. "That means I get a visit from the Tooth Fairy." The young Deceit tilted his head. "You still believe in the Tooth Fairy?" he asked. "Of course," the twins answered in unison. "Never stop believing," Roman said, raising a fist over dramatically. "Yeah, haven't you watched Rise of the Guardians?" Remus asked in fake shock. Deceit simply laughed at this. "Roman and I are like Jamie," Remus exclaimed happily. "We'll never stop believing." Roman nodded at that excitedly. "All right," Deceit said. "Roman!" an excited voice shouted. The three kids turned around to see a small Patton running at his friends and Logan calmly walking behind. "Guys, you're here!" Ronan grinned widely. Remus and Deceit shared a short glance, but didn't say anything. Remus and Deceit were best friends, and so were Roman, Patton, and Logan. But even though they didn't get along perfectly, the kids often played together. "Can we play rescue again?" the small Roman asked excitedly. It's a game they played nearly every day. It was simple. Logan or Patton were a prince that got kidnapped by the bad monsters, which were always Remus and Deceit, while Roman and Patton or Logan fought to rescue the prince.
"Oh, can I be the knight this time?"
Remus asked hopefully. "But you're always the monster," Remus argued.
"Yeah, but that's why I want to be something else."
Remus pouted. Before the twins could get into a fight, Patton quickly stepped in. "Sure you can. We could swap roles if you want." Remus grinned gratefully, and the 5 kids began to play. Chapter 16. The Past Part 2. The weird friend group was now 11 years old. Everyone changed a bit over the years. Roman and Remus fought more recently now, but in the end, one of them always apologized, and they made up with a Disney marathon. Deceit grew more distant towards Roman, since the boy didn't like how the twins treated each other, especially how Roman always acted like he was something better. Logan still visited, but when he did, the boy had his nose in a book most of the time. Thanks to that, he had the biggest vocabulary out of all the kids, and the boy grew fond of correcting everyone's wrong pronunciations, every wrong grammar, and so on. Even though he preferred books, you could catch him reading a comic pretty often. Thanks to the behavior, he got the nickname Nerdy Wolverine, but everyone knew it wasn't meant in a bad way. Patton hadn't changed a bit. He was still the happiest out of all of them. He still tried to make everyone as happy as he was himself, and he still shared the biggest amount of love. The boy learned how to bake, which is why Patton liked to bring cookies every time he visited. On this fateful day, the group met at the palace again. Deceit and Remus were silently snickering in the corner about a joke Remus made, while Logan was reading and Roman and Patton were discussing something. "All right, folks," Roman announced loudly, clapping his hands. Of course, he got everyone's attention. "How about we play rescue?" the boy asked with a smile. It has been 3 years since they played it the last time, and everyone was excited at the idea to play again. The 5 kids all ran out, Remus's joke long forgotten, and Logan's book abandoned in the corner. When they all entered the garden, everyone began to chatter and claim roles. "I want to be the kidnapped prince. I want to be the rescuer. But I wanted to be that. There can be 2 rescuers. Can I be a rescuer too?" Everyone looked at Remus, who asked the question, while he smiled brightly. "But you can't be the rescuer," Roman finally said.
"Why not? You're the rescuer all the time,"
the green twin argued. "Because I'm the good guy," Roman smiled. Remus tilted his head in confusion.
"Yeah, me too."
"No, you're not. You're the bad twin." Remus decided not to let his twin see how hurt he was by that statement.
"Why?"
"We're both creativity, but your ideas are bad. They're cruel and scary and mean, just like you. That's why you play the monster, because you are one." Deceit let out a gasp, while Patton and Logan looked from one twin to the other.
You think I'm a monster?"
Roman, not noticing the light quiver in his brother's voice, continued. "Of course you are. That's why Thomas never listens to your ideas. They're awful, and every time you choose to make Thomas's dreams, he wakes up screaming. He calls your dreams nightmares for a reason." Remus looked around the others. Patton looked away, not wanting to admit he was slightly scared of Remus's ideas too. Logan simply nodded in agreement, since Roman did have a point. Remus looked over at Deceit, who stared at Roman in shock. So Remus did the only thing he could think of in that moment. He ran. "You're a fucking idiot," Deceit said before running after Remus. And the 2 never returned. Chapter 18. The Date. "After that, I built my own castle like Elsa, and bye-bye," Remus finished. The only difference was that his sibling didn't follow to make sure he was safe. By now, everyone has gathered around them. I didn't know that, Virgil said, looking at the floor. You couldn't, Deceit answered. You were made 4 years after that. You couldn't know unless we wanted to, and Remus... And neither Remus nor I did. And I didn't know. I'm so... Roman started, but Remus cut him off. Don't say you're sorry, he said, staring up at his brother. It's been years, Roman, Remus continued while standing up and rubbing his eyes tiredly. Honestly, I want to go home. Deceit placed a hand on the man's shoulder and nodded. Thank you for your help, the snake told Patton before sinking down with Remus. Depression's their problem now, he mumbled, glad to not have to worry about that anymore. Remus nodded in agreement and let himself plop onto the couch.
So, still open for that date?
Deceit smirked a little but nodded. Of course. Now, where do you want to eat?
Oh, I know just the place.
To be honest, Deceit was worried about where they would eat. By now, he was pretty sure Remus would consider cannibalism at the dump. But no. Remus went into the town with him. It wasn't a noble restaurant, but it was a private picnic on a hill. If you'd look to your right, you could see a lake. To your left was a forest, and behind the two of them was a town. Deceit smiled when they sat down. It's a really nice place. How did you find it? He asked to start a conversation.
Well, I looked outside the window, and there was a hill. Boom, found it.
Deceit rolled his eyes at the answer. Of course. What did I expect?
Yeah, what did you expect? Shame on you, Snake Boi.
The trash man laughed. Said man smirked at him and looked at the picnic basket. Remus followed his gaze and opened it proudly.
Ta-da!
Inside were some sandwiches and juice boxes. Deceit smiled at the proud face Remus wore. This might have not been much physically, but to Deceit, it was the definition of a perfect date. He knew Remus was a horrible cook, but he still did his best to make food himself. And just to see the smile back on his lover's face, Deceit wouldn't trade this beautiful, honest smile for the world, not after he lived to long without it. And especially not after he feared to live the rest of his life without it. No, the smile was worth the world and more. And there you have it. That was the final chapter of The Trash Man and the Snake Boi by SimplyAThought. I'd like to thank SimplyAThought for letting me read their fic. It was very much a treasure, and I very much loved how Remus didn't forgive Roman. I love fanfics that do that, because it's like, if Roman really did hurt Remus that badly, there's no way that he's gonna forgive him. There's so many fics that have Remus forgive Roman when realistically he wouldn't. So like, so good. So thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this fic, you could you could listen to others on my playlist. You could go to my live channel to watch me go live, and just click on the screen for random videos to watch. My social media links are in the description below, as long as a link to submit your own fic that I could read. It doesn't have to be one you written. It could be written by anyone. It could be any fandom. Just submit it, and maybe I'll read it. Who knows? I have a Discord down below, a Twitter, and Instagram, so like you could do all the social media things. And just thank you for watching. Like always, do your best.